Hey everybody, it's Jonathan McMillan back at you with another BTA, Better Than Average Conversation. This, if you haven't checked it out already, this has been a series of, I don't like to use the word interviews, but conversations with people who I have found influential or inspiring or even have been mentors in my life. And I'm just actually just recording conversations that we would normally have maybe once or twice a week or sometimes once or twice a month. Today, I'm very, very, very excited because the person who I'm talking to today is the person who got me started on this professional speaking journey and kind of has laid out the breadcrumbs and paved the road for me to follow to become the person who is able to present things like this. His name is Ian Humphrey. I had the pleasure of meeting him through a mutual friend. His story is incredible. It mirrors mine in many aspects. And so I not only look at him as a mentor, but as a friend, because he can relate to many of the things that I have been through. And he relates definitely to many of the things that I'm working to accomplish. So with that being said, Ian, welcome, man. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
So I don't want to tell too much of your story. Tell my viewers, tell your viewers who you are. What are you talking about, and help them understand why I'm so excited to work with you.
All right. Well, first of all, Jay, I think you give me a little bit too much. You give me a little bit too much credit. You're a man on a mission. And I can definitely see that in what you've accomplished over the past year, the time that you and I have been talking and communicating back and forth. But my name is Ian Humphrey. I'm a international motivational speaker. I'm also the author of the book, It's Not About the Knockdown, It's About the Get Up. And that's just a simple guide to fighting back when life throws punches at you, because I believe you got to have some kind of strategy. You know, it was Mike Tyson who said everyone has a plan until they get hit in the head. So my book kind of gives you a plan so that when life knocks you down, you're able to dust yourself off and get back up and rise like yeast.
Incredible. Yeah. If you hadn't checked it out, I spoke to Dudley Thurman the other day, and Dudley, with his incredible story, being Dr. Bounceback,
right?
He shared a little bit about that resiliency of how he earned that title. Mm-hmm. And with the title of your book, it's not about the knockdown, it's about the get up. I understood that a lot of the three of us had a common core of resiliency and being able to come back from and fight through adversity. Right. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your story and how you got started on the journey to being the internationally known speaker and the author?
Sure, and I'll be, as brief as I can. Mm-hmm. But I talk about this very briefly in the book. I'm originally from South Central LA. I was born and raised 2 blocks from where Stan Tookie Williams and Raymond Washington started the Crips. And at the age of 19, eventually, I would fall into that lifestyle and eventually find my way or find myself behind bars. But that's my story is a little bit more than that, because some of the things that led up to to that event that a lot of people don't know and that I talk about briefly in my book is I was in and out of foster homes growing up, abused as a child, repeatedly told I was stupid and would never amount to anything. I was locked inside of a closet while I was in the foster home. So growing up was really tough for me. And to be honest, basically I just used that as an excuse to hate the world. Mm-hmm. People had told me I would never amount to anything. I allowed myself to believe it. And my personal belief is that if you tell yourself something enough times, whether it's positive or negative, sooner or later, you'll believe it. Once you believe it, you will set out to prove it. Now, the flip side of that is someone else can tell you something as well. And if you don't if you don't find a way to block that, you will begin to believe it. And once you begin to believe it subconsciously, you will set out to prove it. I was told I was stupid. I was told I would never amount to anything. I was told I would be just like my father. My father was a career criminal. He died in prison. Because I didn't know how to combat those negative words. So I just took them all in and I absorbed them, and eventually I began to live that life, and it landed me in prison. Shortly after, sometimes it doesn't take much for a light bulb to go off.
Right.
Very quickly I realized prison, this isn't the place for me. I'm better than this. And, there are a lot of people in prison that have made mistakes. So I'm not saying that people in prison are, I'm not saying anything about them. I'm talking about me personally. But I knew that I wanted more out of my life. I knew that I didn't want to die in prison like my father. So I began to work on myself. But it didn't just start with me. While I was in prison, I met a teacher, and his name was Charles Lyles. And this teacher, I don't know what it was about me. He was from Detroit. And so I believe maybe we had that common chord. I was from LA. He was from Detroit. He had been through some things in his life. So he really took an interest in me, and he helped me to make some changes, change my personal beliefs, change my life. I was paroled out of prison, and I've only been back to visit other people, and I'm going to keep it that way. I walked out of that prison over 19 years ago, and I've been able to really lead a successful life since then.
And that's one of the things that I admire about you, and really brought us together, the commonality in so many things, not only your story, but your way of thinking, and as Dudley would say, your mindset.
Right.
I think when we first talked, when you told me that story about being in the foster homes and people calling you stupid, and you hearing those things so many times that you began to believe it. I had one of those epiphanies when I was in prison, and I looked around and saw so many of us in prison, and I wondered what it was, and I came to the realization that our generation and those before us and those after us, we kept being told, whether it came from a good intention or not, that we were destined to go to prison. Right. That the average black man was an endangered species that was more likely to go to prison than go to college. That we were more likely to die before the age of 25 than any other demographic in the world. And like you said, you hear those things enough, you start to prove it right. Yeah. You start to your action follows your identity. And again, just once I heard that from you, I understood that I was on the right path, and my hypothesis had some substance to it. Right. And I thank you for helping me through that revelation. So you kind of touched on it briefly when you were in prison, and you kind of took that look around and said, I'm better than this. Did you have a strategy to get you from that point A to the point where you are now in life?
Well, right out the gate, no, I didn't have a strategy. Just something inside me said, you've got to get out of here and live your life. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I think oftentimes when people, sometimes when people come up with a business plan or they have this idea, oftentimes they don't know how they're going to accomplish it. It's not until you begin to really sit down and surround yourself with different people that you're able to kind of formulate a plan. And with me working with that educator that was in that prison, I was able to come up with some type of I was able to develop a strategy or, a list of principles that I would begin to live by. Mostly, many of them I continue to live my life by today. And that's part of what I teach to schools and businesses, and so that's what I use today. So it's through that I believe, that became my blueprint, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah, that became my blueprint to success, or my blueprint to a better life. Because when originally wrote it down, of course, we don't know if we're going to be successful at it. So
Right.
It's not until after you've achieved some level of success, I believe, you can call it your blueprint for success. But until then, it was just a plan, something that I worked on. But I can tell you this: I surrounded myself with a group of guys in that prison, a group of guys that had the same mindset, and there's that word again, same mindset as I did.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't that many, but I surrounded myself with people that felt as though not only could they get out of prison, but they could stay out. The state of California, the recidivism rate is 70%. Seven out of 10 people that get out eventually go back within the first few years. My strategy was to beat those odds. But something that I quickly learned in prison, if anybody who knows anything about the prison system or the penal system, is it's not a very positive place.
Right.
But one thing that I learned very quickly is you can't share your dreams with everybody. Sometimes people say, well, share your dreams with the world and anybody who will listen. Nah, that's something I don't subscribe to, because I tried it in prison and it landed me in solitary confinement, because not everyone wants to hear your story of how you plan to become successful.
Mm-hmm.
So it became a limited group of individuals, myself included, of course, and another small group of young men, that we came up with strategies to not only get out of prison, like I said, but to stay out and never return unless we were visiting someone else.
Right. So without giving away too much for free, because I know this is your bread and butter, but you mind sharing maybe one or two of those principles that you and that group came up with?
Sure, I'll share a couple of those with you. It's not really a huge secret. It's something that I apply to my life. But I believe oftentimes we get ourselves in predicaments where we tend to blame other people. And personally, my list or my strategy really begin, or the way I live my life, is to change the things that you can change, because you can't really worry about everything else. And when I found myself in that certain situation, is we have to first take a hard look at ourselves, and we have to find out, or we have to admit our own part and our own role in this. It was very easy for me to say, I went to prison because I didn't have a father. I went to prison because my foster mom abused me and locked me inside of a closet. It's very easy for me to say I was an angry young man because my mom was taken away from me. My mom died when I was 11 years old. So I had all of these things that for years I used those as excuses to live my life in a certain way, less than what, not living up to my own potential. I use those as excuses to live down to the expectations of other people. So that first deal is, first thing that I had to do, one of the hardest things, well, let me show you, one of the easiest things that I've ever done, Jonathan, was to blame everyone else for my position in life, for all of my failures, for all of my missteps and my mishaps, because I didn't have this. It was very easy for me to blame people. There was a point in my life, Jonathan, I would have probably found a reason to blame you, and I didn't even know you, okay? Yep. But the hardest thing that I ever had to do was to look myself in the mirror and say, this is your fault. You're here because of you're here because of something that you've done or didn't do. So don't blame anyone else. Take responsibility for your role and make some changes, but never again make any excuses. And that's one of the things that I live by. And that's one of the things that I teach. If our business isn't successful, we can't blame it on the sales team. We can't blame it on the person that's answering the phone. We have to take a look at ourselves first, and that's where I believe it should start. So no excuses. That's how I live my life. It's no excuses. I'm gonna do this. If I succeed, it's because of something that I've done or with help of others. If I fail, it's because of something that I did or did not do. that I need to find out or focus on and change. And
That's awesome. I think you know that one of my talking points is when people say that they can't achieve their goals.
mm-hmm.
That two of the most dangerous words to anybody's success is but and try.
Right.
And they always say, I'm trying to be a rapper, or I'm trying to be a doctor, or I'm trying to be a good student, but
right.
As I say, you know, what you need to do is tell me what it is that you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why you haven't achieved that without blaming anybody else.
Right.
And I'll tell you exactly where you need to start.
There you go.
I'll tell you exactly. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask, what motivates you? I mean, I know a lot of people, especially in our predicament, like you said, recidivism in California is 70%. I don't think Colorado is much better.
Mm-hmm.
So I know personally, when I got out of prison, I had the same mentality. I wasn't coming back. I refused to come back. I had that moment where I understood that a day wasted in there, or an hour of productivity out here beats a whole day wasted in there. And I was going to create a legacy for my life that spoke to what I was capable of. What types of things motivate you to never go back, and not only never go back, but to be the type of person who Ian Humphrey is?
Well, one thing for sure is, you know, oftentimes, Jay, you hear people say, I got to prove people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so many people have doubted me, have shot me down and turned me away. I gotta become successful so I can prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna tell you something. That's when I was younger, I subscribed to that, but now I flipped it a little bit, and it's not about me proving anyone wrong, because if people don't like you today, that may not change no matter what you do. Today, what I do is, I have my own list of goals. I have my own list of hopes and dreams and things that I hope to accomplish. And my strategy is not to prove any of the people that don't believe in me. My strategy is not to prove them wrong. My strategy is to focus on the things that I have written down, and my strategy is to prove myself right. So that's really my motivation in achieving whatever certain level of success that I set out to achieve. If it's something as simple as, being a good father to my children, it's not about proving people wrong that said, Ian will never be a good father. It's about Ian sticking to his commitment of saying, I'm going to be here for my children. And at the end of the day, saying, I knew I could do it, and I refuse to let anything stop me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can honestly say I had never even thought about it that way. As I process what you're saying, I think that I also kind of subscribe to that. It's never about me trying to prove somebody wrong, or trying to get somebody to like me through my success. Right. The model of SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. A lot of people get caught up on that realistic, so they set real small goals. And I always say there's only a few unrealistic goals, and number one is trying to change how somebody else feels about you. You right. can never change how somebody feels about you. I think that a lot of teenagers need to learn that actually grown folks too, when somebody don't love them no more, and they get to Lenny Williams, please, baby, please. So thanks for sharing that. We talked real briefly about, well, not really briefly, but some of the obstacles that you had to face was that to use a really corny phrase, that stinking thinking that got you into the criminality and got you locked up and whatnot. Were there any other obstacles that you faced in order to make that shift and become the person who you are now? And if you could identify those obstacles and tell me what it was that you did to overcome them.
Okay. I'll share my number one obstacle, because, you're always going to run into obstacles of people, naysayers or people that don't believe in you. But for me, and I know for a lot of people out there, a lot of the young people that I speak to, a lot of companies that I speak to, the number one obstacle is ourselves, and I'm going to, I'll speak on how that affected me personally. After after years of being told, you're never going to amount to anything,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to just flip that switch and all of a sudden you're saying, hey, I can do it. That little voice is always there. And it's always something that when I set out, even now, it's always a challenge, or it's always an obstacle or a hurdle that I have to clear. It's always a barrier. Because that little voice, after hearing it for so long, it always pops up. So I've learned how to manage it, and I've learned how to manage it, but it's still a barrier. And the main way that I push through that is, people, you may think I'm crazy, but I just talk to myself, man. Like I said, I'm gonna tell myself. One of the things that I talk to students about, especially young ladies, and I talk to my own daughters about this, is, you don't wait for some chump, to tell you how beautiful you are. You tell yourself, because if you don't believe it, like I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone says if you don't believe it yourself. So I'm continuously talking to myself. I can do this. I have a speaking engagement coming up. Well, I had a speaking engagement about a month ago where I spoke in front of 1,200 people. And I went out for the mic check, Jonathan, and I looked around and I thought, whoa. And the room was empty. It was just the tables.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a little nervous. And I had to go back to my hotel room and walk around and say, hey, you're here for a reason. You've got a message to deliver. And you're placed on this. You're here right now at this moment because no one else can deliver this message but you. So don't let these people down and don't let yourself down. So that's just kind of a strategy that I use just to get over that hurdle is, I talk to myself.
Hey, and there is nothing wrong with that. I'm going to tell you a quick story. My grandfather used to say, boy, there ain't nothing wrong with talking to yourself. He said, there ain't nothing wrong with asking yourself questions.
No.
There ain't even nothing wrong with answering yourself. But if you ever go, huh? What'd you say? That's when you know you're in trouble.
That's right. I know that's right.
But seriously, and as we're friends on Facebook and other social media, I am a firm believer in the I am better than average affirmations. And that is directly born out of what you just said, that your self-talk could be your worst enemy.
Yeah.
That voice in your head, that little devil on your shoulder telling you, man, you can't do it. Man, you just like the rest of them. Man, you failed last time. And to combat that, I tell myself every day, I am better than average because, and then I list off a whole laundry list of reasons that I know that I'm better than the average person, and I expect better than average performance out of myself. So it's good to know that once again, you and I are eye to eye on that philosophy. I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon here. There's just a handful of questions I want to ask before we go. You touched on it just briefly. The mentor. Well, you said you have that educator in prison. But as I have you and I have several other mentors who have contributed to developing my mindset and continue to build that up, who has been your biggest mentor? Biggest influence, best mentor, I guess I want to say.
Okay. Well, I guess there's two. One, and I know, I'm not a very spiritual person. Well, religious person, but I believe in a certain spirituality, and I have to believe, some of the things that I've gone through in my life, I didn't make it through those things on my own. but I had someone looking out for me and kind of helping me along the way. So first and foremost, I say a prayer, and I'm very thankful that I've been able to achieve and overcome some of the things, some of the obstacles in my life that I've been able to overcome. Because as I turn on the news every day, you see stories about individuals that gave up for whatever reason. Something continued to push me, and I know that that wasn't all thanks to me.
Right.
I give thanks to my higher power. Other than that, I have a group of people that I speak to on a regular basis, and I wouldn't say, that. Well, you could call them mentors, or you could just call them. Well, I guess we could use that word, but
or advisors or
yeah,
influencers, whatever.
right. I try to find influence or motivation from a number of different places. It could be from something that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, I'll give you an example, and then I'll speak about one person specifically. I just recently started going back to the gym, to boxing, Title I boxing, and it's tough, and it was Monday. I got up, I got dressed to go to the boxing class, talked myself out of it. Jay, I took my workout clothes off and put on my work clothes, and I'm standing there in my closet and I'm talking to myself. I'm saying, you got to go, So I changed back into my workout clothes and went and hit the heavy bag. But once I walked through the door, I saw someone there that I hadn't seen probably in a number of years. And so not necessarily a friend of mine, but just someone that I know. But seeing him there motivated me and says, you know what? There's no excuses. There's no excuse. You have to do this. And now, he and I have kind of sparked up our own kind of not competitive, not competition, but we're motivating each other to continue to do. When I look at the speaking business, when I first got into the speaking business, anyone that knows me will tell you, if you tell them Ian Humphrey is a professional speaker, they will probably check your pulse, or they will say, show me a picture, because we cannot be talking about the same Ian Humphrey. Going out and speaking in front of audiences isn't something that I do naturally, or it's something that I do because I know people really truly benefit from the message. So for me, I've had to find coaches or mentors or people that could help to influence me, to give me guidance and to help me along this journey. Like most success stories that I've accomplished, I have not been able to do it on my own. And for me, and I think you've recently connected with him, but it's a speaker out of Baltimore, Ty Howard. One day I sent his name's Ty Howard. He's a motivational speaker and he's an author.
Mm-hmm.
Probably speak to him minimum of probably, to be honest, on the phone, probably 3 times a week. And, he's my coach, and he's really helped to guide me through this business. So I would say when it comes to this business, Ty Howard probably is my number one personal mentor. I purchased a number of his products, and they've truly helped me along the way. So
that's great. And you're right. I have come across Ty recently. I don't even remember what it was. I was just surfing the internet, reading the stuff that influences me and motivates me. And I don't know if I came across a post that he did or an article that he wrote, but it was so powerful that I said, I need to look up this brother on Facebook so I could follow him and get a daily dose of him. And not even knowing that, we were going full circle, that I started to follow him. And then I think I asked you offline, who is it who coached you? And you had mentioned him. I said, oh man, I just started following that brother, man. Yeah.
Well, he's a busy. I mean, he's one of the hardest working people that I know. I mean, he grinds.
And to that testament, he every day that he posts something on Facebook, just like, "Hey Facebook, how are you doing?" Anybody who likes that comment or says something, he replies back to them, which is amazing to me because just my little bit of following, I don't have time to interact with everybody.
Yeah. Well, he's a personable person. I found him on the internet
Mm-hmm.
years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and I sent him an email. Now, he wasn't the only person. I sent an email probably out to 2 people, 3 maybe at the most. And, to my surprise, he responded later that day and left his phone number and said, "Hey, call me." And, that's been it,
Yeah. And even that little brief story, that this is just another testament to the principles that I don't like to use the word teach, but I share with people about becoming better than average. Is you must reach out to people who you see being successful doing what you want in
Right.
order to learn how to be successful. And I appreciate that you shared that as a real life testimony, because I tell people that all the time and they're like, "Man, I'm not talking to nobody." And I said, "Well, you're not going to get any further than where you are."
Right.
Who was it that says that you are the sum of the 5 people around you?
Yeah.
That Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy are one of them, but I truly believe that. Just a couple more questions before we get out of here. I'm a huge advocate for your mindset not only being positive but being grateful. I truly believe that the more gratitude you have, the more that you attract into your life to be grateful for. With that in mind, and being the holiday season, what is Ian Humphrey most grateful for right now?
That's easy, man. I'd have to say, and like most busy people, I don't think oftentimes we don't slow down enough to 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 communicate that. But I'd have to say, my family. We have my wife and I. We have 4 children, 3 teenagers. You don't have any teenagers yet, so we'll talk one.
I got a 21-year-old brother.
Well, hey, you don't have a teenager, but you've been through it.
Yeah,
So you understand. I've got 3 at the same time. Okay?
Yeah, man.
So oftentimes it's tough being a parent. It's not easy, but at the end of the day, I'm grateful that they're all healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful that every day for the time that we have, because there are a lot of young families that are celebrating this holiday season and somebody's missing.
Yep.
Somebody's missing. So,
yeah, and that's really the real deal Holyfield right there.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. So, yeah. Let me ask just 2 more questions, and I'll let you get back to that wonderful family. I know one of your daughters is a straight up comedian, so I can testify to why you grateful. If you had one piece of advice that you wanted people to walk away with, what would it be? And if you can, 10 words or less. I only say 10 words or less so that it's concise and people remember Ian Humphrey told me blank.
Okay. Well, here's what I would say. I would say that, oftentimes we spend a lot of time avoiding adversity, avoiding obstacles. But I would say learn, when it comes to obstacles, learn to expect them, embrace them, and overcome them. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the knockdown. It's about the get up.
All right, Ian. The last thing I want to ask you, and it's not really a question, it's more of a plea. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, whether it's for booking you, coaching, just they want to ask you to expound more on your advice, whatever it may be, how would one person get in touch with you?
I'll give you a couple different ways. You could go to my website. You could either go to ianhumphrey.com. That's IANHUMPHREY speaks.com, or you could go to Be Inspired. That's BEIANSPIRED.com. Shoot me an email, and I will. I always respond back to people.
Okay. I'm going to ask you for one more. What about your YouTube page? You know the URL for that, because I spend a lot of time on there, and I think that would be a worthy visit for people.
I think so too. That's where a lot of clients go there to see, kind of my style, to see if we're a fit, because I'm not a fit for everyone. But you want to see my style and kind of what I speak on and the different topics. You can if you just go to YouTube and just type in my name, Ian Humphrey, find me, or you can type in "It's Not About the Knockdown," and you'll see my face on one of those videos.
All right. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that anybody who watches it is going to appreciate this. Man, I can't thank you enough for participating in this with me. I keep getting chills every time I do one of these, and this is the one that I really wanted to do more than any other. In the ones I have lined up, I literally did save one of the best for last. So thank you for participating with me. I want to wrap this up, but I want to get why I have you on the air. I talked to Dudley about this when we wrapped up our interview. I want to get you in 2016, the three of us. We want to do a Kings of, I don't know, we're going to call it Kings of Motivation or Kings of Inspiration or the Kings of Resiliency or something. But in 2016, can the three of us get together and make this happen?
Yeah, we've been talking about it, so it's time to do it.
I think that's going to be a powerful, powerful, powerful summit whenever it happens. And it's on my 2016 goals. So
yeah, I know Dudley's all in, so I'm right there with you.
Okay, so I just want to give the people a preview, you know what I'm saying? So, hey, right on again, man. Thanks a whole lot. I can't express how much I appreciate this. I'm gonna let you get back to those girls and dinner and your beautiful wife, and you and I will chop it up.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, man. It's been fun, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Peace out, brother. Love you.
All right. We'll see you.